If you want someone to take you seriously and take your ideas into consideration, if you're not someone with a lot of credibility, say that the idea is from someone like notable. For example, like, oh, this is what Bill Gates said, or Elon Musk, or SimoneSquared. Kidding. I actually use this a lot. If someone doesn't believe what I'm saying, I'll be like,
I learned this in my psychology class from my professor.
Using the word because means you're like 93% more likely to get people to do things for you. Doesn't matter how bizarre the reasoning is. The human mind is going to fill in that blank. The blank is, well, she said I need to use the printer, but oh, there must be like a more urgent issue. If you just say I need to use the printer, it's just that. So throw in the word because. If someone does something wrong and they're doing something that you don't want them to do, instead of telling them, hey, Kaylee, don't do that, you fucking bitch, tell her what she should be doing instead. That's the trick, and it especially works really well with children. There is a technique called the disrupt then reframe technique, and it's a sneaky way of getting people to cooperate with you basically. So I'm just going to read the study. It found that experimenters went door to door selling node cards for a charity, and in the scenario they told people it was 300 pennies for 8 cards, which is a bargain. And basically this technique works to confuse people because it disrupts the thought process. And while trying to figure out how many dollars 300 pennies comes out to, people get distracted and they just accept the deal overall. Yeah, you can really throw people off if you just confuse them a little bit, and then they'll agree out of simplicity to simplify their life. If you're trying to get someone's guard down, always make them laugh, light-hearted humor, try to get them to smile, crack a joke. It's a very subtle manipulation tactic. Most people use it, but throw in the word everyone.
Hey, everyone hates you, Kaylee.
Who is everyone? You didn't say who everyone is, but now Kaylee's like, oh. Simone said everyone hates me, so everyone hates me. Once you notice the everyone trick, you realize how often people use it, and it is a manipulation tactic. Okay, when you want to persuade someone, use the name in the middle of a request, especially if they're not very close to you. It works because people like to feel acknowledged. I think I've talked about this so often. And once they feel acknowledged with you, they're more unlikely to be disagreeable when they're with you. Okay, if you're debating with someone and you kind of want to throw them off a bit, ignore what they said and just kind of smile at them and be silent. And then they'll repeat the question and they'll feel like an idiot, and that puts you in a dominant position. Okay, when you're negotiating with someone and you want a higher offer, first of all, never take the first offer. Second of all, make like a visible flinch or a grunt when you get the offer, and it'll make the other person think they need to offer you something higher. If you like the first offer, don't visibly go, people can see it on your face, look a little disgusted. I've talked about this before, it's the power of options. This is how you get your way with something. Let's say your friends are going out to eat, you're making the plans, and you have a choice of 3 restaurants. Don't give them too many options. People don't like many options. Pick one that you want to go to that sounds amazing, and then make the other 2 options sound absolutely heinous. And that way you're always going to get what you want. Okay, in a work environment, never ever ever outshine the master. This is actually from the 48 Laws of Power. It's really funny because someone in my comments recommended me that book, and I was thinking, honey, you think I haven't read that book? I am the 48 Laws of Power. I'm kidding. But I found this to be particularly true when I was working in marketing, and I had an awful boss. When I would outshine her, she would come for me. When I would do a little bad and then give her all the credit, she loved it. Don't outshine the master, because you never know when you're going to need them, especially if you're working in a really large corporate environment. Also, when you ask people for help and get them to talk about themselves or how they learned a particular skill, a situation where you get them to brag, they will like you more, because everyone loves to brag about themselves. In job interviews and when making friends, I've talked about this one before, but you always need to talk about what you offer. It doesn't work to go in there and be like, this is what you can give to me. It works a little bit, you know, like when you want to determine if a job's a good fit, but it can't be a one-sided relationship. You have to Sell yourself. Why would I be a good friend to you? What are my good qualities which make me a good friend, a good candidate for this position? You have to sell yourself. If you want to receive less criticism from the person that's giving the critiquing, make sure you sit next to them or in close proximity, because close proximity means they're less likely to openly criticize you. Go sit next to your teacher. Don't appear too perfect and don't appear too flawed. We have talked about this. You need to appear just right, Goldilocks, just right. So openly show that you make mistakes, but you can never show that you make too many mistakes, otherwise you're gonna look like a klutz. People like people who are relatable, but you can't look sloppy. And if someone's too flawed, you know, they look sloppy. And always admit your mistakes, because it makes you look more human and people are more likely to like you, be less intimidated by you, especially if you're an intimidating individual. Okay, if you want someone to like you more, you ask them for a favor, you ask them to do something for you, or you can ask them to explain something to you. Our behavior towards an individual, it shapes what we think of them. Nodding gives the impression that you know what you're talking about, and people are more likely to agree with you. When you notice someone is trying to trigger you, or you're in an argument and they raise their voice, never raise your voice. Don't react. It's gonna make them feel like a fool. And if you're silent, they'll fill in the gap. You can even, in the middle of it, bring up something personal in their life, like, oh Michael, by the way, how's your family? It will immediately calm them down and they'll feel like an idiot.